Welcome to the SBP Podcast, the voice of mobile film. This is episode 38, and I'm your host, Susie Botello. In this episode, we welcome Senior Marketing Manager of FilmConvert, John Parker. FilmConvert has been a sponsor of the Mobile Film School and the International Mobile Film Festival for a few years. They are supporting filmmakers like you who use smartphone cameras to shoot their footage. And as their popularity grows in the mobile film industry, we would like to share them with you. In this episode, you will hear John speak about the history of FilmConvert and what he does in the company, where the creators of FilmConvert come from, including their parent company, and quite a bit about mastering your films using post-production techniques in software such as FilmConvert. Now, before we get to our guest, I want to thank the filmmakers who have submitted films to the International Mobile Film Festival here in San Diego for the 2019 edition, in which is happening on April 27th and 28th next year. So mark your calendars and be a part of it. Now, listen, the deadline to submit short films, 1 to 5 minutes, is November 19 this year. But we also have our competition for feature-length films between 40 and 90 minutes. And you don't want to miss the deadline, which is basically, let's see. Oh, wow. It's actually coming up. It's coming up next month on October 19th. So seriously, don't miss it, all right? This year, we're making an exception with all the film submissions, that's shorts and feature films, by allowing not more, actually, than 10% of your total film to include aerial drone footage. That's actually a first for us. So go to our website to get the scoop, www.internationalmobilefilmfestival.com. And now let me mention one last thing. The hashtag #MobilizeStories, the community, which that is, spent the summer networking, sharing, and inspiring people of all ages, including professional filmmakers in San Diego. But we also I actually went, to San Diego Comic-Con to share the community, and followed by that, I went to Indianapolis, where I presented a mobile filmmaking workshop at Heartland Films' first Indie Shorts International Film Festival. Okay, but wait, there's actually a little more than that. I had the honor of teaching middle and high school students at Carlsbad High School's Film Academy summer camp, where the students spent about a week learning how to come up with story ideas, write screenplays, shoot their films using iPhones, and editing them using iMovie. I just want to take a minute to thank the organizers, Ronnie Sue Player and Jeff Brandmeier, and of course, the volunteers and every single student who inspired me in that class. So, thank you. Now, if you would like to be a part of the hashtag #MobilizeStories community, then you can go to the website, www.mobilizestories.com, or you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Mobilize Stories. That's all one word, Mobilize Stories. Use the hashtag to share your mobile film experiences, your videos, and basically everything mobile film. We'll do our best to share them, to support you, whatever we need to do to keep you involved, engaged, and inspired. In San Diego, something is coming. It's very soon. Are you ready? I can't tell you yet, but stay tuned to the Mobilize Stories social media platforms and follow the hashtag. Wow, I totally almost forgot to tell you. We have monthly contests at the Mobilize Stories community. These contests are ready right now. As a matter of fact, this month in September, we just launched the Vlogs competition. So it's a challenge. It's a video contest. Just go to the website, or we're also on Film Freeway. So obviously you go to filmfreeway.com/Mobilize Stories, and we're right there, and we'll explain all the rules and what you get if you win and things like that. So make sure that you take part in that competition and be a part of that community. And don't forget to share whatever you do regarding mobile film with the hashtag Mobilize Stories. We want to see you online. All right, so now, are you ready to be a part of our conversation with John Parker of FilmConvert? Let's go to Wellington, New Zealand, where John is now. Hey, welcome everybody to the SBP Podcast, the voice of mobile film. I've got a really awesome guest here today. His name is John Parker, and he is from one of our sponsors, FilmConvert. Say hi, John.
Hi, nice to meet you all.
John, before we get into FilmConvert, why don't you share with everyone who John is and how he even came to FilmConvert, and then, if you don't mind, telling them a little bit about the background of FilmConvert as well.
Sure, yeah. So I'm actually talking to you from Wellington, New Zealand, down here at the bottom of the southern hemisphere. So it's just going to springtime here, which is really lovely. You guys hopefully had a nice summer up there.
Yeah, it's 95 right now here, 95 degrees.
Wow. Yeah. It's a lot cooler than that here at the moment. But yeah, it's still pretty lovely. Many of you will know that New Zealand has its own kind of long filmmaking tradition. And of course, so the Lord of the Rings movies were shot here. And the Avatar movies are going on at the moment. So Wellington is a big kind of hub of film activity in New Zealand. There's always kind of a lot of projects going on, and Weta Workshop is based here. So yeah, it's a really great place to be a filmmaker and to be in a film-adjacent kind of business as well. So my background is I started out as making movies in high school. I had a Digi-8 camera, and I made and edited my own films, and I did that as my kind of first job out of high school. I worked for a little local TV company, regional television company, making commercials and editing documentaries. And so I kind of stuck through that through university. And I graduated in 2002 here in New Zealand, and I went over to New York City to work in film production, and did that for about 9 months, and decided that I really hated working in film production. And decided what I really wanted to do was I liked the beginning of projects. I liked the writing and the kind of the story kind of building, and I really liked the editing and the post-production. But actually being on film sets is really, really boring, or it's very boring 90% of the time and very stressful the other 10% of the time. If you've ever been on a film set, you'll know what I mean. So I kind of decided to do my master's in screenwriting, and I was working in the kind of the marketing field, which is its own kind of type of storytelling, and it's an interesting kind of niche kind of skill to have. Yeah. And eventually I found my way to FilmConvert, which is a software company which makes tools for filmmakers, and I'm the marketing manager here. And it's kind of a nice marriage of my film kind of background, my storytelling interests, and marketing, which is kind of what my day job is. So it worked out really nicely.
Wow, you've got quite a background. Now listen, I've been on film sets and I've been in video production, and I don't get bored with it. I actually my problem was, remember the executive producer would come to me and say, so Susie, what part of this do you want to do? You want to be the writer? You want to do sound? You want to do the video editing? What do you want to do? And I said, I've dipped my feet in all of it, and I love all of it. So this is really hard for me to choose just one part of it. Definitely the producing part is not fun.
That's funny. I actually enjoyed the producing parts. Like kind of the putting together the kind of the package of and like finding like-minded talent, like creative people who are going to work well together. Like I really enjoy that kind of part of the project as well, and managing all those details. So that's
I was a production coordinator for a film in Big Bear, and I swear all I did, it seemed like, was there's a lot of details to it, but
Yeah, yeah.
I remember a lot of it, which maybe I'm crazy because I'm a little bit adventurous and I strive under stress, but I put out a lot of fires. Seemed
Yeah.
like I was just running around putting fires,
Yeah. People don't realize how much of filmmaking is actually just emails and spreadsheets.
Yeah. That was, to me, that was like the boring part. But when they were there,
Yeah.
they were calling me and saying, so we need, they're going to close the film commission is closing here, or the Chamber of Commerce is closing, and we just found out we need a new location license for this other part, and blah, blah, blah. And okay, I'll be right there.
Yeah.
They're closing in 5 minutes.
Yeah. The other thing that, especially when I came out of film school, and this is 2001, when I went to work on film sets in New York, is that everything was very hierarchical and broken down by department. So I was working in the grip and electrical kind of department, which meant you just did you were there to do one thing and one thing only, and didn't kind of cross over. There was no kind of way of learning, like stepping outside your box to kind of do more, because the way films are produced is very kind of linear and very kind of box, like every little department has its own kind of role to play, which is how big movies can kind of get made. But what's happened, I think, in the past 10, 15 years, and especially mobile has been a real huge driver of this, is that one person can now do everything. They can be a one-person film crew and do camera, do sound, do the editing, do the color grading, do the production, all in one. They can have all the skills because the technology has got so good that one person can actually master all those departments themselves and become effectively their own production house.
You're exactly right, and I do agree with you. When you're working in that kind of an environment where the union rules, basically, which is very limiting, like that is boring. That's something I never thrived to do, is to go to the Hollywood part. Independent filmmaker is a different beast.
Yeah. There's a lot more scope for freedom, but there's that everybody's doing everything because they have no money and they're forced to.
Yeah, you're right. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about mobile film. That was a great segue. Thank you. Let's talk about mobile film and how did FilmConvert, because FilmConvert is a color grading software.
Yeah, and it's specifically film emulation and film grain. So it's not, you can use it for color grading, but obviously, there's already great tools out there, DaVinci Resolve, and a lot of the editing programs already have great color grading tools built into them. What FilmConvert does really well is basically is taking footage that you shot on a digital video camera and making it look like you shot it on a film camera. So it gives your digital video footage has kind of historically had quite color characteristics that just made it look like video, that tend to have oversaturated colors, a little too much contrast, and people tended to look down on digital video cameras for a long time because it doesn't look as professional, doesn't have the same kind of just look that we associate with cinema. So what you can do with FilmConvert is effectively give your films the look like they were shot in the 1970s on 35 millimeter Kodak 5207. It just immediately lifts all of your production values with a very simple kind of color transform of your footage to make it look like film and make it look like it was $1 million.
Wow, $1 million sounds great. And what brought it into what it's doing today, which is also including actually it's been a couple years now that you've been introducing the mobile film, what did they call it? Profiles, basically, right?
That's right. Well, FilmConvert started out about over 5 years ago, and originally it only worked with the original Red 1 camera that they developed, and that was the first digital video camera that people really actually wanted to use. That it actually got people excited that digital video was a possibility for high-end production. And so they developed the software that would do the film emulation for the Red 1 camera. The colors out of the Red 1 camera were not great straight out of the box. They required a lot of massaging. And for people who weren't expert color graders but still wanted to use the wanted to use the camera, FilmConvert was a really great option because they could drop FilmConvert on it, and it really kind of brought about the best of the camera. So that they started out with that, but of course there was only about 2,000 Red 1 camera users in the world, and so they realized they need to start supporting more cameras. And the cameras that people were really starting to get excited about were the DSLRs. It was kind of around 2010, 2011, the start of the DSLR revolution with the 5D Mark II from Canon. Just totally changed the game for independent filmmakers, because suddenly you had a camera for $2,000, which you could get shallow depth of field, you could get really beautiful optics out of it, you could use good cinema glass on it, but you could still run and gun, you could carry it around really quickly, and it just made life so much easier for filmmakers. So FilmConvert jumped on that and began doing custom profiles for each new camera as the manufacturers brought them out. And so around, again, 3-4 years ago, when mobile filmmaking was really kind of starting to catch on, we want to support filmmakers to kind of make the best out of their images. So we said, we've got to start supporting smartphones. This is the kind of platform that lots more people are going to be using. And let's add film support for those. We partnered with Filmic Pro, who make the camera app, because they had specifically had support for shooting in log and flat profiles, which really kind of gets the best out of the sensor. Smartphone camera sensors still aren't quite up to the level of professional camera sensors because they have to be so small, and because they kind of have a higher compression on the data rates. But Filmic Pro really kind of it gets the best out of what the camera can do on the phone, and then FilmConvert kind of does the rest to make it look like it was shot on a much higher end camera.
Yeah. On one of the things that I like to tell people a lot about, and our listeners know if they're listening to, if they've subscribed and been listening to a lot of our episodes, and that is that I really do, I like to talk to people about, the details of, production and pre-production and post-production, the gear, the software, and all the technicalities of it, but I do still emphasize how important it is to have a good story, because no matter how great of a camera, you could have a red camera, you could, even know how to control all the little details and have gone to school and everything. But if you don't have a good story, it's going to look great, but it's just great B-roll, basically, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So there, we learned that all the technique in the world, all the gear in the world is not going to save a bad script.
But if you have a wonderful story and you want to take that to the ultimate level, then you start learning all these technical aspects of filmmaking, which is, it's like to give an example, it's like, okay, let's just, maybe I'm hungry or something, but cake, right? There's cake. So you bake a cake, but it's that icing and in combination, and the, all the toppings on that. That's what really gives you that whole cake experience. Otherwise, it's just the texture of the, the bread, the sweet bread, which is technically what it is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, so this is great having you here, because it's one of the things, a lot of mobile filmmakers, you have a huge spectrum of experience, in our film festival, we had, kids, and we have people in their 80s, and everything in between. And so you have people, and believe it or not, some know more than others when it comes to mobile film. I remember I was doing a workshop for mobile filmmaking, and I was presenting it, and some of the people in the audience were retired filmmakers. And they had questions, which were technical. I thought, I was a little nervous about it. I thought they're going to ask me questions that I'm not going to know how to answer. And I'll never forget this this one man, and he says, "So how do you get the footage from the phone into the computer?" I was like, "Oh my God, that's that's so easy," but
Well, that's a big workflow kind of question. You got to your workflow has to be solid as part of your production pipeline.
Yeah, but they're thinking so technical, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
sometimes that was just it was just a really cool question for me. It was like, oh, okay, that's it,
That's what I
really?
got.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's really cool having someone like you here because, I do want you to talk a little bit about how important it is to use software like this and to work on post-production per se.
I mean, post-production, it's a critical part of filmmaking. Like the films are built in the edit, as the editors will say, and so obviously you can have a great script, you can go out and shoot it really well and get great locations, but the post-production is where you're going to find out whether you have a movie or not. And it's funny because color grading for so long, and it came from the birth of film, from the when film was originally black and white, and then but even at the very earliest years, people were experimenting with tinting individual frames. People knew that color in film was could be such an emotive kind of way of communicating and supporting the story that people have always wanted to manipulate it. But for basically almost the entire history of film, it's been a very technical process. It's been very complicated, and it's been a very specialized process. There's a handful of people who kind of really know the ins and outs of how the photochemical process worked. And it also they had a lot of overlap with the stills world as well, where you'd go into a dark room and develop your photos. But it was a very hidden kind of process and quite intimidating, I think, for being film. You think kind of just getting to grips with a camera and learning your way around editing software is complicated. Then suddenly having to learn an entire new world about color science and either photochemical kind of lab film development, or getting into things like LUTs and bit rates and codecs and all those kind of things. It is an incredibly kind of intimidating, and it's just a whole nother realm you have to kind of learn about before you can really start producing high quality images.
I agree with that word, and I love that you said that word, intimidating. Because that's actually what has kept people away from this world for, even in the most recent years.
Yeah, it's a big barrier, and it's not, and unfortunately, it's also something you actually do have to master. You can't half-ass a color grade and get your the things are not going to be shown on television because they have to go through various QA processes. Netflix's QA process is incredibly rigorous for what they will accept. They have very high kind of standards. So if you're trying to get something on Netflix, you had better make sure that your post process is going to kind of fit through all of their hoops if you want to get it seen. So up until 5-10 years ago, this was it was a rarefied world. It was a very specialized world, and one that the very expensive post houses in Burbank charge hundreds of dollars an hour for their color graders' technical knowledge. What FilmConvert can do is basically take care of a lot of that for you. You can drop it. It really is a kind of 2 or 3 click process to, as long as your footage is shot well exposed and right balanced, FilmConvert is really going to elevate it to that next level and really going to give it make the most out of the images that you've kind of gone to so hard to kind of capture. But you don't need to be a color scientist. You don't need to be you don't need to learn as much about it, or basically it lowers the barrier a lot to be able to produce cinema quality looking images.
Yeah, I want to read what it says on your website. Like it's all yours, right?
I wrote every word.
It says FilmConvert enables you to add film, color, and grain to your video in a few simple clicks. With the range of market-leading cameras profiled, you can achieve precise, industry-leading results even under the tightest deadline. That few simple clicks part is what you're actually talking about, right?
Exactly, yeah. FilmConvert, it works as a plugin in other major editors. So if you're familiar with Premiere Pro, Final Cut, DaVinci Resolve, Avid, it just sits in there in your effects library. And when you've kind of assembled your rough cut or your timeline, or you're ready to begin your color grading, you drag the FilmConvert effect on. You tell it what camera you shot in. So if you shot on the iPhone X with the Filmic Pro log profile, you select that as your source. You tell it what camera stock, film stock you'd like to emulate, whether it's a Kodak, Fujifilm, Polaroid, Ilford. We've got a range of film motion stocks and still stocks. You select that, and then you just click apply, and it's basically done.
So what about, if you don't mind. So let's say one of our listeners right now just shot something with an iPhone 6S or a 7 or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And they bring it into, they don't have Final Cut, they don't have any of those, they have iMovie. So then they're gonna work with their film directly on the software, on the app, right?
Yeah, we've got if you're not editing in one of those platforms we have the plugin for, we also have a desktop app which you can, it's a standalone, so it runs on both Mac and Windows. You can basically pre-process your footage. It's almost like having a film lab, like you'd bring in your footage straight out of the camera, apply FilmConvert, render it out, and then you're ready to start editing in iMovie or wherever you like.
So what is your advice to a mobile filmmaker who's just going to use iMovie with their iPhone footage, once they've selected it from their folder and all that stuff, and they can mm-hmm. see it on the preview and everything? What would you suggest? What would be some suggestions you could tell them to get, at least, let's say they're going for Netflix. Let's go with mm-hmm. the whole burrito here.
Yeah.
So what would be your advice?
Well, that's, at this stage, you have obviously, first of all, make sure you've shot your footage, get the best out of your footage in camera. So make sure that when you're shooting, you're taking out a light meter, you're kind of setting your exposure correctly, you're white balancing at least every setup, if not every shot. So you've got to kind of set yourself up for success in terms of the fundamentals of cinematography. Right. But then once you bring your footage into FilmConvert, it's really kind of time it's time to experiment. It's time to kind of see where your kind of creative direction leads you. And again, go back to your script and your story. What were the emotions of this particular scene that you're grading? How do you want people to feel? How do you want color in that shot to reinforce those feelings? Or do you want them to work at cross purposes? So it's time. You go back to the fundamentals of what is your story trying to communicate? What are the themes there? How can color emphasize and kind of strengthen that's what you're trying to get across? And it's just the fundamentals of you were an artist, so the fundamentals of art are light and shadow, brightness and darkness, very strong color versus very muted color. Those kind of things all matter, and they make a huge amount of subconscious meaning to people watching your film. So to get to what FilmConvert does is by translating things to the look of film stocks, it's an emotional kind of subconscious register. When you see film, you think big movies, you think big screen, you think of it just looks right in your head because we've watched movies. We've all grown up watching movies, so we know what we think a movie looks like. And FilmConvert, this is my tagline for it, is FilmConvert is what movies look like.
Yeah, and that's the other thing about it too, is that it's in the aesthetics and and with cinema, like provoking emotion. Like if you're going with the reds, right, then you're going into fury and rage.
Exactly.
Or you're in Mars.
More kind of muted kind of feeling. Yeah. Yellow traditionally has kind of psychologically unsettling color. It makes you feel kind of not quite kind of out of place. Green can be either healthy and vital or sickly, depending on the kind of tone of green you're using. So what FilmConvert just gives you a really excellent base to start with, because it puts all of your colors into a film language that people understand, that people respond to as film, and then we give you extra to tools to we've got color wheels in there, so if you want to push more blue into the shadows for a night scene, or you want to warm up the highlights, or kind of adjust skin tones, all those tools are there in the plugin that you can just kind of reach for them and tweak your image as necessary.
What would be some things that they definitely should not do? Because, of course, you can play and play and play and experiment and experiment and experiment. But what are some things that maybe you've even seen people do that you're going, that really just killed it?
It's really, I mean, you've got to, a lot of it's just in pre-production and just making sure you understand what tools you're using. Like, if you're going for a traditional cinema, or if you're making a narrative short film that you want to read as a short film, just make sure your frame rate is correct. For instance, like 24 frames per second is what people associate with filmmaking. So don't edit in maybe you shoot higher frame rate if you want to slow down footage, but make sure that you're not if the high frame rate is too high, then it'll give that fast kind of motion, which kind of destroys the illusion that you're looking at a movie. It looks too much like video. So kind of little things like that. You can't go too wrong. I love really strong looks in cinema. I like kind of bold, kind of stylized kind of choices. So I think you can push your image a long, long way before you start running into problems. But again, it just comes down to the fundamentals of cinematography. If you light your shot correctly, set your exposure correctly, you're going to end up with a really good base image to grade with, and then you can let your creative side go wild.
Yeah, I remember. I actually worked on a set once where they were using film, and we were doing, the entire. It was inside of a cabin, and they had, already. It was day for night shooting.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, you really still need more light, and they were looking at the monitor and I was like, well, this is fine. And I said, yeah, but you're working with film and it's going to come out darker. And I never saw that movie again after it came out too. It did. It came out too dark. I was told by the producer they were reviewing it and they couldn't bring it up. And I wanted you to really emphasize things like that, because that is a problem if, you're talking about light. And exposure and things like that. Well, it's almost better to overlight something than to, not super, but if you have to go a little lighter, that's better than under, right?
Well, it's smartphone cameras in particular, because the sensors are smaller. They're more sensitive to light levels. You can't get away with totally underlying a scene because you'll get too much digital noise coming out, because the camera is kind of desperately trying to compensate for making a guess at what it thinks is there. So yeah, obviously you've got to be careful not to underlight with the smaller sensors. That goes for DSLRs as well, Micro Four Thirds, even professional level digital cameras. And particularly, I'm not sure how much you've gone into on previous episodes, but with log shooting modes, which are becoming much more prevalent, and they're available in Filmora Pro, and I think some new the LG V30 I think actually has a built-in log shooting mode, and it gets a little technical, but basically, what log shooting is a trade-off. It allows you to get more dynamic range out of your camera, which is great. You see higher into the highlights, deeper into the shadows, but you need to be a lot more precise with setting your exposure and your lighting, because if you underexpose it, you get a lot more noise, and if you overexpose it, it's hard to monitor on set. So if you overexpose it, you run the risk of losing detail in the highlights that you can't actually recover. So it's basically. Shooting log is good, but you have to know what you're doing.
Sounds intimidating.
It's a new thing. It's only been it used to be in the realm of film scanned a cine log, which is a particular format to be able to maximize the dynamic range out of it. Video cameras for a long time didn't have this, so it's only in the past few years that log shooting has really become affordable and or it's a viable option for cinematographers. And there's a whole learning curve that you have to go around to maximize what you can get out of it. But again, FilmConvert comes with all the support for the log. So if you've shot log on your camera, we can convert that back to a really nice looking image that you can start. That can be the basis for your grading, and it'll maintain all that dynamic range that you've very carefully captured.
Does FilmConvert have a lot of the apps on the phones, right? For shooting and things like that. They go through a lot of updates, typically.
Yeah. FilmConvert's, we bring out new camera support at least every couple of weeks. Where we've got a huge number of cameras in our pipeline. And we're hoping to do more smartphones. We've got the Samsung S9 to do. We've got an iPhone X profile coming out soon. We want to do the LG V30. We want to do the Google Pixel 3, which apparently has an amazing camera. We're looking forward to seeing that. Those camera profiles are coming out every month, and those are free from FilmConvert. They just they're updated to the program, and you can just increases the range of source cameras you can use. But the software itself has been more or less the same. People they love the film stocks. The controls are very simple, very intuitive. So it hasn't actually required a lot of updates to date. We do have a new update actually coming out between now and the end of the year. It's still kind of under wraps at the moment, but as far as the feature set. But what it is going to basically do is give color graders even more power and flexibility to grade their image. It's kind of it's a power user upgrade if you really want to delve into if you can spend. FilmConvert's great if you need a quick grade and a couple of minutes for quick turnaround stuff, but this is going to be really kind of in-depth tools to really maximize and get the most out of your image if you have the time to spend on it. So
oh yeah, well, everybody, when you're playing and you're getting creative, there is no such thing as time. You just get lost in it.
Yeah, exactly. You can spend hours and hours kind of obsessing over a shot if you want to.
Yeah. So was there something you wanted to bring up?
So, the FilmConvert short film competition is happening in September, and we'd love to get even more smartphone entries. We think it's going to be a huge and kind of big and rising category. And the best thing is you don't need to actually own FilmConvert in order to enter. You just need to put it on your footage or on a film that you've already completed, and then you can enter that film. There's 6 categories from narrative short film, documentary, travel is our new category this year, and that's for people kind of beautiful sights and vistas and things without a kind of narrative, but they still want to make a film out of their experiences.
Yeah.
Music video, wedding, and commercial.
Great. Oh, they could do a lot with music too. That's very creative.
Yeah. Music videos. It's actually my favorite category just because they're so diverse and they're so creative, and people can
experimental.
Experimental, and you also get it just introduced to a bunch of great bands that you never heard of before from all over the world.
That's awesome, and you give them, you give them an opportunity as well.
Exactly. Well, there's the last category is the People's Choice Awards, which is actually voted for by people coming to the site, watching their films, and then you can vote for your favorite one. So you're by submitting your film to the competition, you're going to get it seen by thousands and thousands of people all around the world. So it's a great way of getting kind of exposure and your name out there and getting your film watched by a lot of people. And if it really takes off, if you have a lot of family and friends and supporters who can vote for your film, you might win the ultimate prize.
So what about the lonely people?
Well, if they've made a really good film, maybe people will fall in love with it and share it themselves organically.
Yeah, I love that. So we'll have to help you promote that on our social media then.
Yeah, that's great. So it's going to be on the FilmConvert website. It'll be launching in a couple of weeks, mid-September. And we'd love to see lots of smartphone entries this year. It'd be great.
Yeah, and September is only one day away. Less than that, actually.
That's September here, but I'm ahead of time.
Yeah, you are. You're in the future. So let me see. Tell me a little bit, if you don't mind, just about Rubber. What was the name of the parent company of FilmConvert?
Rubber Monkey.
And who came up with that name?
I'm not sure. It's lost to the mists of time. Rubber Monkey's been around much longer than FilmConvert, and it was the brainchild of a guy named Nigel Stanford. He was also a New Zealander. But he and Craig Herring, who's the CEO of FilmConvert, formed Rubber Monkey and they made software, they made games, they did a whole bunch of stuff together. But and Rubber Monkey is now it's actually a film rental business. They've got their hire business here in Wellington, and FilmConvert was kind of one of the spin-off software arms that kind of became a real success and it's taken off, and now it's its own kind of standalone business.
Wow, that's awesome! And do they also play with equipment for mobile filmmakers and things like that, or? Yeah.
They've got a whole range of stuff there. Nigel actually, he makes a music video. He's a musician as well. He makes his own music videos. And if you have a look, Google Nigel Stanford on YouTube, you'll find has just amazing music videos. He only makes one every 2 or 3 years because they take so long. The pre-production process is so involved because his last one had robots. They're like special industrial robots that they had to program and choreograph it for the music video.
Wow, that sounds pretty cool. And you said you made documentaries and things like that, right?
Yeah, when I first moved to New York, I ended up working with a filmmaker named Angelo Giulielmo, and we worked on a documentary that he shot, which is about the civilian volunteers who helped out after 9/11 in New York City, and that was called Heart of Steel. And that ended up that got screened to the White House and ended up on. I think you can find it on Netflix. I'm not sure if it's on there at the moment. But so I ended up. That took us 9 months of me going over to his apartment every night after work and finding the story in that and editing together the rough cut. And it was a great experience. It screened at the Tribeca Film Festival in 2006.
Wow, and I love documentaries. It's one of my favorite. I actually think it's my favorite outside of something like Lord of the Rings. I'm not gonna lie about that. I love Lord of the Rings. But outside of that, I would say documentaries are my favorite. You can never really. I mean, of course, you write the script for it and everything like that, but you can't control it. And it can
documentary is really the editor's kind of love because you find the story in post. As the footage kind of speaks to you and you tease out you find the emotional details, and it's all very improvised, but you'll find the story as you go, and it kind of evolves over time. And so if you're an editor, and I think for my editor and writer side, are going to really enjoy that aspect of it.
I used to say when you're working on a documentary, the script is never finalized.
No, you can find there's certain details, certain lines will jump out at you, and you'll realize the film kind of will take a direction or that you weren't even anticipating as you're making or shooting it. But then suddenly something will become very apparent to you just sitting down and watching hours and hours of footage over and over again.
Yeah, and it's really when you're behind the camera too, you can become so detached because people wonder, how can you film that? It happened with me. One of the films that I worked on, which I never completed, I feel bad to this day about it. It was about the dangers of and the effects of drunk driving, basically, and through the eyes of children. And so it took me a long time to even find children whose parents and they themselves were willing to not be obscured, I should say, and in front of the camera. I thought it was really important that you see their eyes and their emotions, when they're describing their situation. And one of the things that I realized from that is that here they are breaking down in front of you, but because you're behind the camera, somehow you're able to not let it get to you that much, as hard as it looks. And people who are watching it are thinking that maybe the person behind the camera, they're doing either one or two things. They're either bawling and you can't see them, right? Or they're completely just heartless, right?
Impassive, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not. It's neither one of those things, really. It's. I mean, yes, you do cry a little bit, sometimes, and you do feel it, but it's such a weird thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess you kind of basically just have to feel like you're there in service of a story, and in order to communicate something to people, and you hope that by being you're serving as witness.
Yeah. Well, so what do you think? What do you think about documentary filmmaking with phones?
I think it's a revolution because phones are so small, they're so inconspicuous. Have you seen the film The Square? It was won the best foreign language Oscar, I want to say. It was about the revolution in Iran, in Egypt. Sorry, Tahrir Square. And a lot of that footage was shot on cell phones because the police were arresting anybody with big, bulky film equipment, but the phones could kind of be pulled out quickly, got some shots, and then shoved back in your pocket. And it's the footage is so immediate and great. You feel like you're there because the focal distance and they're using and how kind of close and immediate it is with the phone photography. It's an amazing documentary experience.
It really is. And I really think that it's one of the most powerful things you could do is just shoot except for, of course, if you're shooting a documentary like, with huge landscapes and things like that, where depth of field is really important and everything, you want to show the beauty of that. But I think for everything else, it's ideal to use a phone, especially if you're traveling too, with the equipment.
Yeah, exactly. And especially in countries where they might kind of frown upon, or journalists are often in danger in many parts of the world. But if you can pass yourself off as a tourist with just a kind of consumer smartphone, but then you can actually use that to tell stories and capture footage of places that you'd never have access to as a kind of a bigger team or a more high profile filmmaker, then yeah, it's only a plus to the ability of people to kind of tell stories that need to be heard.
Yeah, it's the ultimate guerrilla filmmaking.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing about smartphone filmmaking is that it's not, obviously the tools themselves are becoming more and more capable every year, but they can be mixed and matched as well because the sensors are getting so much better. And it's a new project that we're actually working on. We'll have this out next year, a product called CineMatch, which is going to it's similar to FilmConvert, but what it does is aids in camera matching. So obviously different cameras from all the different manufacturers do have variations in their color reproduction. Canons are known they have quite warm, kind of more reddy kind of skin tones, whereas Sony's tend to more towards the green. And so if you've shot a project, especially a documentary, but any kind of event or project where you have footage from multiple cameras, just matching those in post as your very first step is actually quite difficult and quite technical. So what CineMatch is going to do is make that a lot easier. Again, you'll be able to drop it on your footage, tell it, I shot it on this camera, I want it to look like this camera, press go, and it'll convert that footage to the look of that camera in basically a couple of clicks. What this will allow you to do, if you're editing a documentary and you had some high-end B-roll that you shot on an expensive camera, or you shot your interviews on a really nice A-cam, but they have some smartphone footage that you want to make look like the rest of your film, CineMatch is going to be perfect for that. It's going to make your iPhone footage look like it blends a lot better in with the rest of your story.
Yeah, and the reason for that, for our listeners to know, well, why would you want to do that? Because you don't really want to break when your audience is engaged and captivated by a moment that could involve different shots with different cameras. So you don't want to break that fluidity of that moment.
Yeah, exactly. It's about getting kind of consistent look or a consistent baseline look across your film. If you want, then you can then build on that with your grading to kind of add in the emotional component. But until your cameras are matched, you're not going to be able to do that creative stuff because the look is going to be so different.
Yeah, it'll almost look like jump cuts or something.
Exactly. Yeah, and you're right. And it'll throw you out if you find that you can even see if you see news things occasionally which are shot where on two different angles. If they're shot on two different cameras, you'll just notice a difference in the lighting and difference in the and again, it's noticeable once you start looking for it. So CineMatch is going to be a really great solution for that.
Yeah. Well, hey, I want to play a game with you.
Sure.
This is, we call it our shout out game. And what it is you have 20 seconds to recite basically a list that I'm putting you on the spot to do. And what I was thinking, because of your experience and your knowledge with post production, that maybe you can shout out within 20 seconds. I know it goes by very fast. Maybe some of the most important things to consider in post production, like we're talking about your software and color grading, but there's also things with audio and just a few things like that. I don't want to give you too many ideas because then I might as well just play the game, right? So
you want just like keywords or kind of concepts? Or?
Yeah, concepts as fast as you can. Not that I expect you to just but I've got a timer here, and an alarm will go off when it stops. So, are you ready?
So about post production.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
All right. Sorry about the pain of this, but it is kind of fun.
Sure.
And ready, set, go.
Story is the most important thing. When you've done lots of work on your story and on your film, but post-production is where your story comes together. So go back to the roots and the thing that inspired you most when you first started out in your film. Go back to that and make that your focus in your post-production.
Sorry. You know
I'm
what?
not sure if I played that right. Sorry.
No, you know what? That was awesome, though, John, because that's the
I think it's so important because post-production is so fraught with technical things and workflow things and choosing what tool, and it can get, again, it's overwhelming and intimidating. But if you're a filmmaker, then just go especially after you've pre-produced a film, you've kind of done all your locations, you've done the absolute gruel if you had a 9-day shoot or a 12-week shoot, or if you've been working on a film for months. When you finally get into the post-production, the editing kind of process, you're going to be you're almost exhausted. Like it's horrible. It's a thing that another whole process that you have to go through. So I feel like a lot of films probably either get edited too fast because people want to rush through them, or they might get abandoned in post because it just feels so overwhelming. So just go back and reflect on the things that inspired you to make this film in the first place. Think about the story, the emotional things you want to connect with your audience, and you always come back to that as it doesn't matter about, in the end, how the color looks, how the sound sounds, if the emotional heart of your story is in the right place. That's what's going to move your audience, and that's why you went in filmmaking in the first place.
That's awesome. Yeah, don't get lost in the jungle of technicalities.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I love.
Or know that emotion and story will win out over all those things.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I was thinking about when we were talking about documentaries, how forgiving people are when it comes to the aesthetics of a documentary. Because it's a documentary. It's people realize you can't just say cut. Let's do that again. Can you please do her hair? Can you please, in the backdrop, can you light that better or anything like that? It's really hard to do that because it's happening in the moment. It's the real thing.
Well, I think also another advantage for smartphone filmmakers, which is becoming more, is that smartphones are now a big part of the way we actually perceive and watch the world. We're seeing a lot of things through these screens in our hands. So the aesthetic of that is actually becoming much more normalized. It used to seeing if you tried to pitch Nike or Adidas that you're going to shoot their next commercial on a smartphone 10 years ago, you would have been laughed out of their head office.
I used to say that, actually.
If you pitch that now, they go, oh, great, that sounds exciting. What can you do? What kind of new energy is this going to bring? You're going to get taken a lot more seriously because smartphones are they're part of the language. They're part of what people are used to so much more now.
Yeah, no, that was me a while, 2009, telling people, hey, well, in the future, all those big movies you're looking at on the big screen in theaters, half of the movies that you're going to watch at the AMC or any of these big time theaters are going to be shot with phones. And they would just look at me going, no, Susie, you know, yeah, that's very true. But yeah, I wanted to just give you a few minutes here, just to give a shout out to whatever you want to do. I mean, at this point, just go ahead and give some extra publicity to any projects that you have, and also anything important for FilmConvert. Not everybody reads the notes. I will include the notes and the links and things like that for our listeners. Please do go to the notes, because we'll share some links to follow you guys. But for the ones that are not going to do that, maybe you'll want to mouth off the Facebook and Instagram.
So yeah, we'd love people to come, and if you're interested or intrigued by what FilmConvert might be able to do with your footage, you can go to our website. We've got a free, fully functional trial of software. So you can download it direct from our website, put it into your editor, and then just start playing around, see how you like it. All the film support's all in there. It doesn't cost anything, and you get the full look of the film stocks. Everything's included there. So we really encourage you, if you haven't played around with it before, just download it and give it a go and see how you like it. Also check out the film. If you have a film that you've already made that you would like to the look of FilmConvert on, enter it in our competition, which will be launching on September 6th. We've got thousands of dollars worth of prizes, including cameras, mic kits, editing software and plugins from a range of manufacturers, and plus there's cash prizes as well. So we'd love to see lots of entries from smartphone filmmakers this year.
Awesome. Definitely. And anybody can enter. Is this an all ages contest?
Absolutely, yeah. Anybody. We got my favorite entry last year was from a couple of high school guys who were on cruise in the Caribbean, and they were bored with their family, so they made a film and they entered in the competition. It was one of my favorite entries.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, great. So then it's all ages. So all you kids listening, or parents or teachers, get them involved, because you have what were the themes again?
There's narrative short film, documentary, wedding videos, or kind of events, music video, corporate commercials, and there's People's Choice Award, which is voted for by the public. So if yours is the most popular film, then you win the grand prize.
Great. And what is the website again?
You can get all the details are at www.filmconvert.com.
Great. And then you have Facebook as well. That's at FilmConvert.
Yep, it's FilmConvert's the user handle for everything: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, the whole lot.
Awesome. Okay. And now, John, it's been really nice talking to you finally. Almost in person.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be doing, again, we've got some new products and things coming out next year. So hopefully we'll get over to San Diego and get to meet a bunch of the mobile filmmakers there in person.
Yes, it would be great if you could come out, just for our listeners and for you as well. We do our film festival every single year. It's the very last weekend of April, and I believe this year is on the 27th and the 28th of April.
Right. Okay. We'll put it in the calendar.
Yeah. And, your calendar's on your phone. It's right there. So yeah, it'd be great to have you in our film festival, and you can meet everybody and everybody can meet you. Well, thank you again for everything. Really appreciate. And also on behalf of everyone who's been being awarded over the last few years, and are soon to be awarded for this year, mobile filmmakers, thank you very much for your sponsorship.
We appreciate it. We love filmmakers of all stripes, no matter what camera they're using, and we just wish you all the best on your filmmaking endeavors.
Great. All right. Well, good night. Say good night, listeners.
Night, listeners.